Okay, so a lot of parents ask, how long should our day be taking? By the fact that you're asking that, I can pretty much suspect that you feel like the day is taking too long. And you've probably come into homeschool thinking homeschoolers are supposed to be able to get their education done in a shorter amount of time than public school. And I agree with that. That's one of the advantages to homeschool is you're not stuck in the books from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So if your day is starting to take too long, or you just feel like it's wearing on you, on your kids, regardless of how long it is, hours wise, if you can tell that it's starting to wear everybody out, then it is completely within your prerogative to change your school day and to shorten that schedule. Now, I know you're probably asking, how do I do that without sacrificing the quality of the education or without extending our school year so long that we never get a break, right? Well, I've got a few tips and hacks that I use. Hopefully it'll translate over into whatever curriculum you use as well. First of all, if your curriculum is like mine, it is a very thorough, comprehensive offering of material. If you've seen my video, The Curriculum Buffet, then you already understand what I mean. There are a lot of options and a lot of supplemental materials to help reinforce learning. It doesn't mean that we have to use all of those things. So one of the things that I do is if I can tell that my child has mastered a concept well enough, we move on. Even beyond the assignment as it is in the curriculum. Sometimes the curriculum, for example, ours will assign a math lesson and it'll say, do pages 28 and 29, odd problems only. Well, if I look and there are 45 problems on those 2 pages, okay, doing odds, that cuts it down to about 23. That's good, right? But if it's already a concept that my child has down, why am I going to make them sit there and do 23 problems just to demonstrate something that they already know? So what I might do is I might say, you know what? Pick 5 problems on this page, or I might pick them for them, 1 in each section and a word problem at the end. Do these, show me that you've gotten it right, and then we'll move forward. Sometimes, especially if I can tell that the entire lesson is a reinforcement lesson of the previous one, we'll skip the lesson entirely. That's not wasting curriculum. That's causing it to work within the framework that works for us. I am a big believer in fast tracking when the child is comprehending. Okay, I don't mean push a kid through a grade level when they haven't really gotten the concepts. But when they are getting them, there's no reason to belabor the point. So just remember, you're in the driver's seat. You as the parent get to decide when it's appropriate for them to move on. I'm going to give you another secret. Most of the grade levels, especially in math and English, the first few chapters are a review of the end of the previous grade level. So guess what? When we get started with a new grade level, I say, bring me your math book. We go to chapter 1, skip to the chapter review at the end of the chapter. I'll say, do you know how to do this? Tell me the answer to this. Or maybe I'll let them sit down and work it out with pencil and paper. If they can nail that chapter review, here you go, take the test. What just happened? If they get a 95 or higher, and of course you set the standard, but that's my general rule of thumb, then they get to skip that chapter. If they can ace the chapter without even looking at a single lesson, I don't see the reason to take 5 days to cover that material. Now, maybe as a purist, you want to make sure that you haven't skipped anything at all, and I understand that, but I'm also trying to help you with tips on how to not get bogged down in your curriculum as you go. My youngest, he just started 3rd grade in the last 2 months or so. He tested out of about 3 or 4 chapters of math. Why? Is it because he's a genius? I mean, I like to tell my kids they're geniuses anyway, but it's because he already knew these concepts from 2nd grade math. So we just kept going and kept testing out until we hit something he didn't know or wasn't as confident in. Turns out he needs some work with his multiplication tables. So we started slowing things down when we got to that chapter. That cut out 3 or 4 chapters, which depending on your schedule, that could be a week, several weeks of material that he didn't really need to do. And I've done this before with his older 3 siblings too. So I already know that I can do this and they're not going to be lacking later on. Okay. It's not like I'm just testing this out with him for the first time. So that's another tip. Another thing that I use to condense the year down, because our curriculum is laid out in a 180-day format, which is kind of standard. Some states have requirements for, in-class instruction days. And so 180 is kind of the average, I guess. So our curriculum lays it out that way. Well, I want to condense it because I don't want to be in the books 180 days. I want to be able to have freedom for other things as well. We do a 4-day school week, and we do still take a break. We don't do year-round school, although we have before, but we tend to take a few months off as well. So I don't want to just drag things on and on and on. So one thing that I do, our curriculum lays it out so that we have the lesson days, and then as we get closer to the end of the chapter, there might be one lesson or one day for the chapter review. Then they'll take the test the next day. Then they'll do a cumulative review the next day. What I started doing years ago was squashing those 3 days together. And sometimes, to be honest, now we cut out the cumulative review. If they've been doing well all throughout the course, I don't see much reason to stop and do the cumulative unless there's something on it that I feel like they need refreshing or reinforcing. So we'll do the chapter review. Once they've proven that they're ready for the test, they'll take the test that same day. And then we'll either do the cumulative review or we'll nix it all together. And we just put 3 days of stuff into one day. The other thing we do, and I don't know if your curriculum does this or not, but our curriculum builds in a lot of work days. I cut them out. On my schedule, I always just skip the work days. Why? Because honestly, if we need extra time on something, we're going to stop and take extra time on something. Otherwise, I'm not going to plan just work days, because that's going to basically be a day that we did nothing on that subject. So now again, our approach has morphed and changed throughout time as well. And I realize sometimes those work days are built in for a specific project. If they're working on a research project, there may be 2 days of English class being just work days for that research paper. So there are times that you may want to keep it in there. I'm just saying, as a general rule, this is what I've done. Now, I'm going to throw this out there. This isn't going to be for everybody, and I understand that. But if it does resonate with you, maybe this will help you out as well. We started a while ago now, probably 2 or 3 years ago. We started changing our approach from trying to do every subject every day to really just focusing on 1 or 2 subjects at a time. And it becomes a little more fluid in terms of scheduling, but my kids love it. So for example, when we started our 3rd grader a couple of months ago, we bought all of his curriculum. The way ours is set up, we have 20 months to be able to watch the videos that go along with our curriculum. We buy a mixture of video curriculum and what we call parent-led or books only. And then I ask him, what do you want to start with? And he knows the rhythm that we're in, so he picked. So he wanted to start primarily with math, and then maybe with a little bit of heritage studies or science. So right now, we're focusing on math. And you say, well, doesn't that mean there's going to be a large gap between math this year and math next year? Yeah, there is, but I haven't had a problem yet with them retaining. Remember, this is the kid that just tested out of 3 or 4 chapters of Math 3. So what I'm finding is that by letting them follow their motivation, they're getting a lot done most of the time faster, and they're building on momentum, where if he's really nailing it with this concept, well, hey, that's great, let's move on to the next lesson and do another one, building on that. We're able to go through it faster actually than having to recall every day, what was I doing in this subject, where was I in this subject. So it's entirely a different approach. Now, don't get me wrong, I don't let my kids just direct everything. I'm not all about a kid-led approach to education, and I'll have some more thoughts on that as time goes on. But I do feel like there needs to be some morale boosting, and you do need to find where their motivation is. So if he tells me, oh, Mom, I'm so excited, I want to start Math 3, absolutely, let's do that. So we start with Math 3, and then I like to have another subject on the back burner, because sometimes you get brain fried from one subject and you need to bring in kind of like a relief pitcher, right? You need something to just give it a break and be able to focus on something different. So a lot of times I like to oppose things like math with English, something very numeric and technical with something very language arts, or science versus reading or something like that. Something where it'll feel like a break for them if they need to get out of this subject and go look at something else. Another example, my 9th grader right now is focusing entirely on physical science. His alternate, Algebra 1. Guess which one's getting more of his attention right now? Science. He's procrastinating and keeping Algebra 1 to the last subject that he does, but it's fine. I'm okay with him following the motivation that he needs to follow, and he'll get it all done. I'm not worried about that. Now, on the flip side, if you do hit a concept that you need to stop and slow down on, do it, and don't worry about the 180-day calendar and what it's going to look like in the spring. Just do what you need to do to get it solid. Even if you take an entire day on one concept, that is not a lost day. At the end of the day, if your child knows that concept better than they did when they woke up that morning, that's a productive day, and you should be really happy with yourself and with your child. So don't get so bound to the schedule of the curriculum that you feel like you have to do everything exactly the way that it's lined out. Remember the curriculum buffet video. It's all about making the curriculum work for you, not you working for the curriculum. So I hope these tips have helped. I'll have more to share as we go along. If you have any specific questions or comments, feel free to leave them, and I will be happy to look at those things as well. And if I see any recurring trends, I would definitely love to do a video that addresses those concerns. Meanwhile, subscribe if you haven't already on YouTube, and head over to wiserhomeschool.com to pick up that free ebook that I have for you. 5 keys to unshakable confidence in starting your homeschool. But again, I'll say it's not just for those starting out. It's for any of you who are already in this journey and maybe hit some bumps along the way. Thanks so much for watching. I can't wait to see where this journey is going. I'll see you soon.